Our first speaker is going to be Bahiyah Shabazz, and she is a financial guru. Can you put your hands together for Bahiyah, please? Thank
you for having me. So it is a pleasure to be here today. I'm excited. You see this picture? It is a picture of my dad, my siblings, and myself. So this is the thing. When I was younger, I would ask my parents for money all the time. However, I had no idea that we were financially challenged. We would take the time out on weekends to go fishing, so we loved our fishing trips. We also dined in at home. We also made sure that we made the best out of everything we had. We had backyard camping trips at the same time. But more importantly, what we did was support the local community. We supported the local community by patronizing small businesses. But that didn't stop with me. As a child, I had demands. Although we supported everyone else, I wanted my parents to support me. So what I did was I would ask for money all the time. I would think of ways how they could provide for me. I had requests. I wanted those clear jelly sandals. I wanted candy from the neighborhood candy store. There was a Huffy bike with a blue banana seat that I clearly wanted, and I demanded it every day I could. But it didn't stop there for me. What I did was I would try to figure out ways to ask my parents for money. So it was the early 1980s, particularly 1981, when we were going through a recession. My dad took the time out to pull me to the side. He gave me $1 along with a speech. That speech told me that I should be grateful to receive this dollar, because there were many children who could not get money from their parents. Their parents couldn't afford it during the recession. And it made me wonder, wow, how far could I stretch this dollar? But at the same time, I said to myself, I feel as though this is hush money, because my dad did not want me to continue to have all of these demands, right? And at the same time, I knew that I had to make sure that this dollar lasted forever. Now, fast forward decades later, this same generation, along with others, have demands. We are going through yet another recession as well as a pandemic. So what are we to do? We need to make sure that we are able to make ends meet. We need to make sure that we have enough money to pay for shelter, groceries, utilities, as well as tuition and more. We had demands during that time, and our demand was, hey, let's see how we can request to make ends meet. So what did we receive? We received a stimulus check. And at that moment, I felt as though we were receiving hush money. From 1981, I instantly had my thoughts reflect to what my dad did for me. So this stimulus check was supposed to last us from one of the richest governments in this world. Now, this is a quote that I like. Government is a great fiction through which everybody endeavors to live at the expense of everyone else. Now, how long was this government check supposed to last us? See, what the government does, they create a way for us to make sure that we stimulate the economy, right? See, the stimulus check was supposed to last us as long as possible. Yes, the check that we received from one of the richest countries ever. I like this quote, government is a great fiction through which everybody endeavors to live at the expense of everyone else. See, what we go through various stages of the business cycle. It is one of the government's responsibility to address when our business cycle are going through expansion as well as recession. By doing so, they provide basically stabilization policies. In this situation, we have our fiscal policy. Now, with the fiscal policy, the government is able to make sure that we go out and we use that stimulus check to stimulate the economy. So what are we doing? Not only are we paying our bills, we are paying for shelter, we are utilizing that money for utilities and everything else that we needed, but we are also supporting the local government as well as the local community as well. Small business owners are making sure that they are moving forward by the demands of the consumer. So it makes you wonder, is the government manipulating the fiscal policy to make sure that we continue to stimulate the economy? Now, when we think about what consumers engage in, there are three markets. We have our local market, we have our national market, and we have our international market. The local market is very, very important to us. Not to say that we don't care about the other two. However, we need to make sure that we live by the great slogan that charity starts at home. And when you want to make sure that your community is moving forward, you are going to do what? Start at home. So, makes you think about this. I want you to continue to have that investment mindset, starting with yourself and starting with your local community. So how many of you feel as though we don't want to travel outside of city and town limits to make sure that we can have the things that we want in our community? There is no reason why we should travel outside our community to have a place where we can shop for Whole Foods. We need to make sure that our community is fully invested. What happened to the days of the plumber, the electrician, as well as the local gas clerk, knowing each other's names and asking questions such as, how are you doing? Who do you know? How can I help you? See, cities and towns started out with just a vision. And along with that vision, we made sure that we had entrepreneurs and small business owners with a vision to make sure that the economy is moving forward. But not just the economy, but to do what? Address the needs of the consumer. And as we fast forward now and look at some of the communities that we have within our neighborhoods, it makes us think about what we have to do in order to invest, and not give up on where you are. Now, I remember when I was younger, I would ride in a vehicle with my maternal grandmother. And there's this famous road in the city of Gary called Chase Street. In Chase Street, we had our own natural spring water. Yes, people would go and take by the gallons to get spring water. And on that same road, we had a market where there were fruit and vegetable, fresh fruit and vegetable. Everyone knew to go to this one particular location in order to patronize each other. We were a community. Nowadays, not just within our city, but a lot of cities and towns that they look at these buildings that are falling apart. We look at our local parks. We look at our homes. There is a place now, I recently drove by one of our golf places where the grass is just as tall as I am. And I thought to myself, there's so much that we can do when it comes to that particular location. See, our local government has a responsibility through a fiscal policy act. And with that fiscal policy act, one of the objectives is for them to make sure that we are investing. But we can't do that without a budget from our local government as well as ourselves. So with that budget, what are we going to do? We're going to make sure that we acknowledge how much we can put back into our community. How much will it take for us to move forward and invest in buildings that are not up to our standards, investing in lots that are not up to our standards, and instead of complaining, go back to the mindset that we had years ago and asking questions, how can I help you? So with that being said, economies basically measure the strength of how well we're doing by our gross domestic product, and that is our GDP. And with the GDP, if the numbers are higher, we're doing great. However, if they're plummeted, we're not doing well. Well, you may ask, well, what is the GDP? GDP measures our total output of our services and demands. Now let's think about this. If we are in a community that does not offer as much as what we would like to have that would address our demands, our GDP is not thriving like economies should and economists want. So when we change that mindset of investing, people will come to our local communities and they will make sure that we are selling our Whole Foods, we're selling our various services, we are able to trade and barter like we did years ago and circulate those dollars back into where we live and where we belong. So what we need to do is we need to figure out ways where we can invest in our community. You see, if we continue to look at one picture over the other, we're not changing our mindset. What we need to do is start with our why. Why do we want to invest in our community? Because it's our community. We've already said that there is no need for us to travel outside of our city limits in order to have a place for Whole Foods, in order to make sure that we can patronize our electricians and our plumbers, to make sure that we actually have a gas station in our neighborhood. Why not? So what we need to do is we need to come together. As a community, come together to make sure that we can invest. See, investment is a mindset, and we need to refocus, starting with our government. What if we take that fiscal policy and any other policies that we have and start putting those funds back into our community? See, as I said before, when I was younger, I would travel down one of the famous roads in our city here and go and get gallons of spring water as well as fresh fruit and vegetables. Now is the time to do that. Now is the time when you see a building in your community to have that vision on what you can do. See, the stimulus check that was provided to us, as well as my dad's $1 in 1981, was not only for us to have, as I call, hush money, but it was a way to show us that we're able to take whatever means we have and invest it not only in our community, but invest it in ourselves. And that is the just investment is a mindset we need to refocus. Thank you, everyone.